Hey, what's up you guys, it's me Luke and welcome back to another video, or if you're new here, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, I post commentary and critique and reaction videos on basically anything on the internet that interests me, ranging from pop culture to internet culture and anything in between. So if any of that interests you, then be sure to go ahead and click the subscribe button and the post notifications bell so that you never miss another upload from me. Alright guys, so in today's video, we're going to be speaking about Trisha Paytas calling out David Dobrik and AB on the H3 podcast. So we have a lot to dive into today. I have copious notes that I'm going to be looking down at, so I'm going to be summarizing the videos and giving my thoughts. So basically, in my last video, well, my second to last video, where I spoke about David Dobrik and Trisha Paytas, basically Trisha Paytas and Ethan Klein from the H3 podcast called David Dobrik out on the Frenemies podcast and basically showed footage of David Dobrik making really insensitive jokes about Big Nick, who is a dwarf and who also is disabled, has a disability, and he was being made fun of and being made the butt of every single joke. And then Big Nick went on the H3 podcast and came out and said that he didn't like the jokes, that they made him uncomfortable, and that he even felt suicidal at one point because he was the constant butt of the joke, and even because he was being made fun of so much on the vlogs, the fans thought it was okay to make fun of him too. So people were making fun of him because of being short and being disabled out in public all the time and making fun of his appearance, and he just said that it got to him, made him feel really low, and he was feeling as a result. And when he told David that it made him uncomfortable, David did apologize, but then phased him out of the vlogs. And then Trisha spoke about how David used to make all these insensitive jokes about Jason Nash and Tana Mongeau having a threesome with her, and they used to make her really uncomfortable. And she told David to not include those in the vlogs and to cut it out, but he didn't, and he kept doing it, and it made her uncomfortable, and he kept doing it even though it made her uncomfortable. And then when she told him not to do it and landed up in a mental hospital as a result of that and overdosing and a bunch of other things, David barely asked if she was okay and then just cut her out of the vlogs and the friendship group, even though she was still dating his best friend Jason Nash. So that's where her issue lies. And she also had other issues, like Brandon Calvillo was dating a underage girl. She was 17 and they were making a lot of sexual jokes about that, and she publicly spoke out about that as well, and that was creating a lot of issues for David, obviously. And then we have Seth, who is a black man who had a lot of racist jokes about racial stereotypes made against him by David and his friends, like watermelons being in the fridge, like doing blackface with peanut butter on their face, like taking him to the police station for some unpaid parking fines, and just a bunch of other racially charged and sensitive jokes. So there's a lot that I got into in my last video, so if you haven't checked that out, I'll link it down below and you can watch it. But that's basically a summary of all of it. And in today's video, we're going to be speaking about AB coming in David Dobrik's defense, and then Trisha Paytas coming for AB on the H3 podcast. And if you don't know who AB is, he's basically one of the staff members on the H3 podcast with Ethan Klein and Hila Klein. They have a couple people who help them with their podcasts and their videos, and they kind of have like a team going there, and AB is one of the prominent members. So yeah, we're going to be speaking about his demise and cancellation with Trisha Paytas and all of that. So without further ado, let's get into it because I'm about to dive in to the drama. Let's get it. So basically, one of the H3 podcast episodes, they have a David Dobrik debate where they debate whether or not David Dobrik is a bad or a good person, whether or not the things he did was wrong when it came to all the things that I listed before, and AB comes to David's defense. So first of all, AB says that it was hypocritical of Trisha to call out David for making jokes about her having a threesome with Tana and Jason when she was constantly making jokes about hooking up with David. He compares the vlogs to a sitcom, saying that people have exaggerated characters that they play off for the camera, which, I mean, I do agree with, but at the end of the day, it is also real life. These are real life people who real life things are happening to. It's not a sitcom at the end of the day, whether or not you compare it. Ethan rebuttals with people asking David not to include certain things in the vlog, but then David includes it anyway. I think this is wrong. If somebody's, like, even if you do something, if somebody's not comfortable and consenting with you putting it online for hundreds of thousands of, if not millions of people to see, then you shouldn't include them in the vlogs. Ethan brings up Big Nick and feeling like shit about the jokes made about him, and AB basically says that the jokes against Nick were fine because he went along with them. And then Hila counters with that, basically saying that when you're in an abusive situation, you can go along with it at the time as it's a way to rationalize the toxic situation. So I definitely agree with this. I think when you're being abused or being made fun of, sometimes you can go along with the joke if you're the butt of the joke, but it doesn't negate the fact that you can still feel like shit about yourself because of it. And AB was basically invalidating Nick's feelings by saying that, you know, you went along with the joke, so it must have been fine. And that's how it came across, whether or not he didn't mean it to, that's how it was presented. And then AB says David may have overlooked this because David was dealing with so many people. And Hila says David should be held responsible for the people who are a part of his business. And I definitely agree with this because David is exploiting these people who are part of the vlog squad. Yes, maybe they get stuff out of it, but from what we know, he's not paying them to be in the vlogs. I mean, he gives them gifts now and then, and they get clout and they get views, but he's using these people, he's making jokes at their expense for his vlogs. David's vlogs would have been nothing without the vlog members. So he's using these people, and he should therefore be held responsible for those people's actions and behaviors because they're basically his staff members. And Hila and Ethan also say that they believe that Nick didn't sign up to be made fun of by the fans. Even if he consented to being made fun of by David and all of David's friends, he didn't like sign up to be made fun of by a bunch of fans out in the street making fun of his disability or the fact that he has dwarfism. And I just think that that's wrong, and I don't think that they can excuse that because it's not fair for him to be made fun of constantly when he didn't sign up for that. And when Nick brought it up to David, David apologized, but then never included him in another video. And yes, maybe Nick said that he didn't want to be a part of the vlogs anymore, but that was after David phased him out because basically if you are not able to be made fun of by David, he has no use for you and he's just going to move on without you in the vlogs, which is really, really disheartening and basically shows you can't have your friends in your vlogs without you making fun of them, which I just think is ridiculous. Like, is there not a way for you to like make jokes and make pranks and do all these fun things without having to do it at the expense of somebody's qualities that they cannot help? Like, he cannot help that he's disabled. He cannot help the way that he looks the way that he looks. So I don't think making jokes at that expense is okay, especially when he presented to you that it made him uncomfortable. And AB just straight up calls Seth a liar. So Seth is the guy who had all the racially charged jokes made against him. And AB says that Nick and Trisha are sincere, but Seth is, and I quote, full of shit. So basically the response to AB defending David was not good, as to be expected, because the stuff that he was saying was very victim blamey and just overall problematic in general. So let's go ahead and read some of the comments. The top one says, AB is that one guy in your college lectures that's like, I'm gonna play devil's advocate here. Which, by the way, I know that it was a debate, but honestly, like, playing devil's advocate for David when David is being called out for all these problematic things, like, what did you think was gonna happen, AB? Also, can we just touch on the fact that David Dobrik is being called out for these problematic things and he just remains completely unscathed? I think it's because he just has such a young audience and they just don't care about all the problematic behavior, because obviously they're watching the vlogs and they see these people being made fun of and they don't care. They see the racially charged jokes, they see the sexist jokes, they see the jokes making fun of Nick who's disabled, and they don't care. They condone it because they watch the vlogs. I myself never watched the vlogs because of those reasons. The next comment says, AB, you're a nice guy, but the victim shaming hurts my heart. I'm very disappointed. Hila is right. Victims go along with things and sometimes even defend the bad behavior done against them. It does not mean that they're okay with it and they're allowed to express how it made them feel. So then basically, like Ethan predicted, Trisha made a video about it. So the video is titled My Response to the Latest H3 Podcast, and I have copious notes about this, so let's get into it. So Trisha basically rebuttals to AB saying that she made jokes about hooking up with David when she was 28 and David was 20, whereas Jason and his jokes with Tanner was 18 and Jason was 45. So there's a very big difference there when it comes to age and when it comes to just an imbalance of power, is basically what she was trying to get across. Now this, I feel like, is kind of a finicky argument. Like, you know, it is kind of hypocritical in the way that, you know, they made jokes about you and you made jokes about him, so it kind of goes both ways. However, David apparently, allegedly, according to Trisha, didn't express that those jokes made him uncomfortable, whereas Trisha repeatedly expressed that those jokes made her uncomfortable. Now, this, if you want to die on this hill, that's fine, but I personally think it's a bit of a weak argument to say that, oh, it's fine for me, just to play devil's advocate. For Trisha to say, oh, it was fine for me to make jokes about hooking up with David because he never expressed that it made him uncomfortable, whereas it's not fine for him to make jokes about hooking up with me, Jason, and Tanner because I expressed it made me uncomfortable. I do agree with her, but I also feel like it's a bit of a weak point. However, I'm not going to negate the fact that it made her uncomfortable, and when she expressed that to David, he should have stopped making those jokes, and he shouldn't have included it in the vlogs when she asked him repeatedly not to. So she had an issue with AB saying it was like a sitcom and that these were lighthearted jokes because they were serious and hurtful to her. And I do agree with it. Like I said before, I don't think you can generalize this by saying it was like a sitcom and these are lighthearted jokes, because this is real life. It's vlogs, it's video footage of people in real life. Yes, they may have bits and may have pranks that are set up, but at the end of the day, it's not acting, it's still happening, it's still very much real, and the effects of it is very real. Like Trisha Paytas landing up in a mental hospital, that's real. Brandon Calvier sleeping with an underage girl, that's real. Seth being offended by all those racially charged jokes, that's real. Nick feeling very, very down about himself because of the jokes made against him and feeling like he wanted to take his own life, that's very real. These are very real instances that occurred because of the actions of David Dobrik in his vlog, and this is why he needs to be held accountable for them, or at least come out and publicly apologize. Yes, it's kind of hard for him to go back and delete all of his videos. I'm not asking him to do that, but I think he should come out and publicly apologize to Seth, Nick, and Trisha, and anybody else that he offended with his vlogs. Now, she also touches on how people would go along with the joke because David has power over them, and I definitely agree with this point. I think David had a huge position of power because he basically held these people's careers in his hand. They're basically show ponies for him, and whoever put on the best joke or the best bit got to be in the vlog, and then they got more clout, and then as a result they got more views on their channel, they got more money. It's all a power trip, and David has so much power over these people. I don't think I need to explain it to you guys. You guys are smart, you get it. But basically, it's a power trip. Now, this point, I don't really think Trisha means, but she says if she sees AB on Frenemies, then she will quit because he is victim blaming. Now, I do agree that he's victim blaming, but I don't think that Trisha Paytas is going to quit Frenemies because the amount of times that she said she's going to quit Frenemies, but it hasn't happened. Like, girl, please, we know you're not going to quit, especially when it's bringing in that fat bag, which I have no issue with. Catch your bag. Apparently, according to Trisha, David didn't even check up on her when she was in the mental hospital and see if she was okay and ask how she's doing. So that's really upsetting, especially considering she said that she considered him a friend. And then she kind of touched on how the threesome joke with Tana and Jason that David constantly made brought up past trauma for her because when she was 18, she had something traumatic happen to her with somebody who was in her 40s. And with Tana being 18 at the time and Jason being in her 40s, it was just a very triggering experience for her. And she expressed this to David, but he continued to purposely do it. Now, this is the thing, right? We can all make offensive jokes, but if somebody expresses that it makes them uncomfortable or that it triggers them, that's when it's your responsibility to stop. So she gave him that opportunity, but he didn't take it. So that's the issue here. And even though AB says that Trisha's feelings are valid, he still dismisses them by saying like, you know, you go along with the joke and all this type of stuff. Now, it's very victim shaming because he says, you know, they didn't speak up, they went along with it. And I just think that's wrong. And she even says that AB is invalidating Big Dick. Sorry. She even says that AB is invalidating Big Nick's testimony. And I do agree with this because just because Big Nick went along with the joke doesn't mean that he shouldn't feel some type of way about it. He's allowed to feel upset. He's allowed to feel as though David Dobrik wronged him, even though he went along with the joke, because it's like, it's abuse. It's like saying to a woman, okay, it's not the same, but just to like, you know, branch off, it's like saying to women who stay in abusive relationships, like, why did you stay? Like, why'd you stay when you were being hurt? Like, there are so many complex emotions that are built into it that it's not as simple as that. It's not as simple as why did you go along with it? Like, some people go along with it because they're scared about what's going to happen to them if they don't go along with it. And then Trisha calls Jason a pathetic little dog that follows David around, and she says that she hopes it's worth the money. And then she calls David a misogynist and a racist and says that Jason is a predator. She's constantly hounding on these points, so this isn't anything new. She then calls out the vlog squad for hanging out during the pandemic, which is something I haven't touched on. Now, obviously we've had a lot of influencers partying during the pandemic, but I don't really keep up with the vlog squad, so I didn't know that they were doing this. But they've been hanging out, going on vacation together, and nobody's even calling them out for still hanging out during a pandemic when they come from separate households, which goes against the guidelines of the country and the state that they live in. So I think that's very problematic, and they're just not being called out for it because their fans are a bunch of young people who don't care. I just thought this was quite an interesting quote from Trisha Paytas. She says that David is a psychopath who has brain-dead minions. She's really coming for his neck. Something else that I thought was problematic and interesting is that she said that Jeff allegedly bought alcohol for underage girls to get them drunk so that they would sleep with Dirty Dom. And if you don't know, Dirty Dom has had a lot of accusations come out against him of him sexually girls and underage girls. Obviously, it's alleged. We don't have any proof yet as far as I'm aware of. If there is any, please let me know. But yeah, there's been a lot of allegations against Dirty Dom, and he just, I mean, I guess the name fits. He just seems really dirty and really gross and does a lot of inappropriate things. And she also calls out Jason for collabing with underage people in TikToks, which I do think is weird. I think it's weird that a 45-year-old man is collabing with a bunch of like 12-year-olds in TikToks. I just think it's wrong. I think it's nasty. I think it is a little bit predatory, and Jason's behavior with that and with the the Tana situation and just being David's little minion in general is just very telling. And like Ethan constantly harps on in the H3 podcast, honestly, Jason, you should have a little bit more respect for yourself. And finally, she ends with telling AB to focus on his job because he's an awful researcher and she doesn't know if he just does what he does to instigate, because D'Angelo Wallace called him out in his bad research, Trisha Paytas has called him out in his bad research, and basically what she's calling him out on is he had to summarize a video when that whole drama was happening with the frenemies thing where Trisha was going to quit and all that, which by the way, I have a whole video on that, so if you want to check that out, I'll link it down below. But he basically summarized it incorrectly and made it seem like Trisha Paytas was coming for them when really she was apologizing to Ethan and Hila. So she basically calls him a bad researcher and tells him that he's bad at his job. After this, we go into another video. I know it's very, very long-winded, but this is the last one that I'll be discussing. So it's the H3 After Dark podcast where Ethan and Hila talk about the Trisha versus AB situation, and AB comes out with an apology. So it's quite a long apology, but I'll just summarize it. He basically says he's wrong for what he said, although his intentions were pure. He says he never meant to victim shame. He was just trying to play devil's advocate, although he admits that that was wrong and he can now see that. He says he had no right to speculate if someone was telling the truth or not, and he apologizes to Nick, Trisha, and Seth, and says that he's sorry if he brought up any past trauma for them. And during that apology, he seems very upset. His voice is very shaky. He even points that out, and he even says that he was getting death threats. He had to private his Instagram, and he heard his wife crying in the bathroom. So this clearly was completely blown out of proportion. Yes, AB was victim shaming, but I think his apology was good. He admits what he did was wrong. He recognizes it. He doesn't play, the victim himself. And I honestly think out of all apologies, he did a really, really good one. Well, it's not up to me to accept the apology, but I think it was a good apology. And then Ethan and Hila basically talk about the victim blaming, saying it's more logical to believe the victim than the abuser when it comes to them lying based on statistics. Like, you should just always believe the victim because the statistics show that more often than not, the victim is telling the truth. So I think it's wrong for when a victim comes out, and it happens all the time, to say that they're lying or they're clout chasing or they're looking for some ulterior motive. I think just believing the victim is important and the message that we need to send. And saying things like, oh, why didn't you leave? Or you went along with it, or you didn't say no, is just wrong. And I feel like we can all learn a lesson from this, that victim shaming is not okay. Alrighty guys, so my SD card cut out, but basically what I was trying to say is that I think this whole situation was blown out of proportion in the sense that I don't think that AB deserved death threats over this. I think he was victim blaming, and I think that it's good that Hila and Ethan put him in his place and basically explained that to him, and Trisha did in her own unique way. But I think AB's apology was good, and I think he realizes what he did was wrong. And I think overall we need to move past this and focus on David Dobrik and him actually being held accountable and coming out with a public apology, because that's the real issue here. You can get focused on the AB Trisha drama, but the real issue is David Dobrik and the vlog members, hanging out during the pandemic, and David Dobrik and all of his insensitive jokes and the fact that he hasn't come out and publicly apologized for them. But I think overall, we can take from this that we should always believe the victim, and that we shouldn't say really horrible comments like, oh, why did you stay? Why didn't you just leave? Why didn't you say no? Why did you go along with it? All that type of stuff. I think victim blaming is horrible, and if we want to take an overall message from this video, it can be that. But yeah, guys, that's it for me in this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up, and please comment down below your thoughts. I would love to know what you think about this whole situation, and if you've not already, please make sure you subscribe and turn on the post notifications bell so that you never miss another upload from me. My social media is linked down below if you want to go ahead and follow me, as well as a link to my second channel, my merch, my podcast, and my Cameo if you want to book one from me. And yeah, that's it for me in this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope to see my next one. And as always, I hope that you have a great day or night wherever you are in the world. Bye!